Tokyo's bustling Roppongi district, a 21-year-old British woman named Lucie Blackman was seeking adventure. Fresh from the UK, she embraced her new life as a hostess in a high-end club, eager to explore the world. But this vibrant chapter of her life took a chilling turn. On a sweltering July night in 2000, Lucie met a man for what should have been a simple dinner by the sea, an ordinary blind date. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. Days passed with no word from Lucie. Her family, thousands of miles away, grew restless with worry. Lucie's father, Tim Blackman, would soon receive the phone call every parent dreads. "Your daughter is missing." He refused to believe it. There must be an explanation, he thought. But with each passing hour, the silence became more deafening, the hope more fragile. What followed was an international search for answers, a race against time that would reveal a disturbing pattern. Hundreds of women, including Lucie, all victims of a predator who had eluded justice for years. Lucie Blackman's blind date would lead authorities down a path they never expected, and behind the smiles and lights of Tokyo's nightlife lay secrets far darker than anyone could imagine. What happened to Lucie Blackman? A vibrant life cut short. Was it simply a case of wrong place, wrong time, or something far more sinister? Lucie Blackman's case garnered worldwide attention. The man responsible, Joji Obara, was a wealthy businessman who had a history of drugging and assaulting women, often without consequence due to victims' fear of reporting. Obara was eventually charged with her abduction and the desecration of her body, but his trial would last years before the family could finally see some semblance of justice. Lucie Blackman was the kind of person who brightened every room she entered. At 21, she was the embodiment of youthful energy, quick-witted, curious about the world, and always ready for adventure. Born and raised in Kent, England, she had recently graduated and made the bold decision to move to Japan. Her friends and family described her as magnetic. People couldn't help but gravitate toward her. She was fearless, yet cautious, excited to explore life, but never reckless. It was in Tokyo that Lucie found work as a hostess in a popular club in the Roppongi district, a vibrant but sometimes dangerous part of the city known for its nightlife. Her job, which involved entertaining wealthy clients, was intended to be temporary, just a way to fund her travels. But her friends, and especially her family, could never have imagined that a simple blind date would be the last time they'd ever hear from her. Lucie was careful. She was aware of her surroundings, especially in a foreign city. So when she didn't return home that evening, her friends became worried. And when hours turned into days, their worry turned into fear. But this was no ordinary disappearance. Lucie had told friends and family exactly where she was going. She had been careful, as always, and yet she was gone. As the days stretched into weeks, her family flew to Japan to join the search. Lucie's father launched an international media campaign, pressuring authorities to find answers. But the more they searched, the deeper the mystery grew. What had started as a blind date was quickly spiraling into a nightmare. Lucie was excited for her date, just like any 21-year-old would be. But little did she know, the man she was meeting that night had a history, a secret life hidden behind the mask of wealth and charm. And the events that unfolded would haunt her family for years to come. July 1st, 2000. It was a warm summer evening when Lucie Blackman arrived at a well-known restaurant near the Zushi Marina, just outside Tokyo. She had agreed to meet a man she had recently encountered, a man who seemed charming, wealthy, and familiar with the city's nightlife. The plan was simple: dinner and conversation by the sea. She arrived at 7 p.m., and witnesses described her as calm, smiling, and at ease. But as Lucie settled into her date, the evening began to take a darker turn. Witnesses recall seeing her chatting with the man, who was later identified as Joji Obara, a wealthy Japanese-Korean businessman with a hidden, terrifying history. By all accounts, the dinner seemed normal, just another evening in the city's crowded restaurants. But something was about to go horribly wrong. At 9 p.m., Lucie and Obara left the restaurant. CCTV footage captures her walking out, seemingly unaware of the danger she was in. From there, Lucie's movements become a mystery. The last sighting of her was just before 9:30 p.m. as she entered Obara's vehicle, heading toward a seaside property he owned in the quiet town of Miura. Lucie's phone, which had been active throughout the evening, suddenly went silent. Calls from her friends went unanswered, and text messages were never read. Hours passed, then days, with no word from Lucie. Her disappearance seemed to happen in an instant, with no witnesses and no clues left behind. The next day, panic set in. Lucie's friends reported her missing, and the search began. But the hours turned into days, and with every passing moment, the mystery deepened. Her father, Tim Blackman, immediately flew to Japan, launching a massive media campaign to draw attention to his daughter's disappearance. He knew that without pressure, the investigation could go cold. As the investigation ramped up, police searched Lucie's apartment, her workplace, and the last places she had been seen, but nothing surfaced. No signs of a struggle, no clues left behind, just the haunting absence of a young woman who had seemingly disappeared into thin air. Tokyo's Metropolitan Police were now on high alert, but with no leads and no physical evidence, the case hit a standstill. CCTV footage shows Lucie leaving the restaurant, but after that, her trail goes cold. Her phone remains inactive, her bank accounts untouched. For weeks, the world watched as the search for Lucie intensified, with media coverage spanning from Tokyo to the UK. Still, no answers emerged. What happened to Lucie Blackman after she left that restaurant? With no trace of her movements after 9 p.m., and with Obara's charm concealing his dark past, the investigation was about to uncover a terrifying truth. But for now, all the authorities could say was that Lucie had vanished, and the clock was ticking. Days after Lucie Blackman's disappearance, the investigation officially began. Friends, alarmed by her silence, had already alerted authorities, but now the case was escalated. Tokyo Metropolitan Police quickly took over, interviewing the staff at the seaside restaurant in Zushi where she was last seen, and reviewing hours of CCTV footage. Yet what they found wasn't what anyone had hoped. Witnesses recalled seeing Lucie chatting with a man, a regular at the club where she worked. They described him as wealthy, charming, and somewhat of a mystery. But even with this information, there were no concrete leads. The CCTV footage showed Lucie leaving the restaurant at 9 p.m. and getting into a car with the man, later identified as Joji Obara. But after that, nothing. The media frenzy surrounding Lucie's disappearance began to mount. Her father, Tim Blackman, held multiple press conferences, urging anyone with information to come forward. Desperation set in as he appealed to the public, fearing that time was running out. Joji Obara quickly became the prime suspect. A wealthy businessman with a known affinity for the nightlife, Obara admitted to being with Lucie that night, but denied any involvement in her disappearance. Police began to dig deeper into his past, and soon discovered that this was not the first time a woman had vanished after spending time with him. Yet despite the growing suspicions, no physical evidence tied him to Lucie's case. As police continued to investigate, they obtained a warrant to search Obara's properties. Forensic teams scoured his beachside condo in Miura, hoping to uncover any trace of Lucie. The search was exhaustive. They sifted through every inch of the property, but the results were grim. No blood, no fingerprints, nothing concrete that could connect Obara to Lucie's disappearance. Meanwhile, Lucie's family was left in agonizing limbo. In Kent, her parents, Tim and Jane Blackman, clung to the hope that their daughter would be found alive. They called the police daily, waiting for any news, but each call seemed to bring more uncertainty. The days stretched into weeks, and the case grew colder by the minute. Despite the efforts of Lucie's family and the relentless work of the Tokyo police, the investigation hit wall after wall. Every lead seemed to lead nowhere, and every search came up empty. It felt as if Lucie had simply vanished into the night. And then, just as hope was beginning to fade, a clue emerged. A single piece of evidence that would turn the entire case upside down. A discovery so unexpected, it would lead authorities straight to the heart of a horrifying pattern that had been hidden in plain sight for years. The investigation zeroed in on Lucie's blind date, a man who had been seen with her at the restaurant on the night of July 1st. Police worked tirelessly to identify him, releasing a sketch to the media. The public response was immediate. Tips poured in from across the city, and one stood out. A man with a record. someone who had been in and out of police custody for similar crimes. Could this be the breakthrough they had been searching for? The tip led police to a local man with a criminal record, a figure who had been in trouble with the law before. Known for violent tendencies and a history of assault, he seemed to fit the profile of someone capable of harming Lucie. Investigators were hopeful that they had found their suspect. For days, the man was questioned relentlessly. Investigators went over every detail of his past, looking for any connection to Lucie Blackman. But something didn't add up. The timelines were off, and despite his troubled history, the man seemed adamant that he had nothing to do with Lucie's disappearance. Then, just as investigators thought they were closing in, DNA results came back, and it was a blow to the case. The suspect's DNA didn't match any evidence they had from Lucie's disappearance. The man was ruled out. This lead, which had seemed so promising, was nothing more than a red herring. The case was now back at square one. Despite the media attention, the public tips, and the extensive search efforts, police were left with no suspect and no answers. The investigation had hit a dead end, leaving Lucie's family in even deeper despair. Months had passed since Lucie Blackman vanished into the Tokyo night, and despite extensive searches and media attention, no new leads had surfaced. Her family continued to plead for answers, and investigators were beginning to lose hope. But then, a breakthrough came. In the dense, quiet woods of Miura, miles from the restaurant, a hiker stumbled upon something unexpected. Lucie's purse, hidden beneath a layer of leaves and dirt. It was the first real piece of evidence since her disappearance. The discovery of Lucie's purse reignited the investigation. Police scoured the surrounding area, hoping to find more clues. Was Lucie taken there against her will? Or had she gone into hiding, trying to escape something? The location raised more questions than answers, especially as it was miles away from any place she was last seen. Then, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Lucie's phone records indicated that a call had been made from her mobile just minutes after she left the restaurant. It was a brief call, lasting only a few seconds, and it was never followed up. The recipient of the call? A mystery that still haunts investigators to this day. Who had Lucie tried to reach in those final moments before she vanished? Was it a cry for help, or simply an attempt to check in with someone? No one knew for sure, and the person on the other end of the line had never come forward. The location of Lucie's purse added another layer of complexity to the case. It was far from the areas previously searched and suggested that Lucie had either been taken there or that her abductor had left it there intentionally, possibly to mislead investigators. As forensic teams analyzed the purse for fingerprints and DNA, they found nothing conclusive. For Lucie's family, the discovery of her purse was both a moment of hope and despair. It was proof that Lucie had been there, but it also meant that she had likely come to harm. Tim Blackman, exhausted from months of searching, gave another emotional press conference, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. The investigation ramped up once again, with authorities expanding their search to the coastline near Zushi Marina. But despite the renewed efforts, no further evidence was found. Lucie's phone had gone silent, her last known contact a mystery. With every passing day, the trail grew colder. The discovery of Lucie's purse was a turning point in the investigation, but it raised more questions than it answered. Where was Lucie taken that night? And who had she tried to contact in her final moments? As investigators continued to probe Joji Obara's dark past, they would soon uncover something far more chilling, evidence that would tie him to a history of violence stretching back years. As the official investigation hit a standstill, the public's fascination with the case only grew. True crime forums were flooded with speculation, and amateur sleuths from around the world began piecing together their own theories. Some believed Lucie had been the victim of a botched abduction, a target of opportunity in a city where tourists and expats often fall prey to predators. Others suggested a case of mistaken identity, wondering if Lucie had gotten caught up in something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. And then there were the darker theories. There was a lot of speculation that Lucie may have planned her own disappearance, though the evidence for that was extremely thin. People saw her outgoing personality, and figured she could have gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd or maybe decided to leave her old life behind. But from everything we know about Lucie, this theory doesn't hold much water. She was in regular contact with her family and friends, and nothing in her life suggested she was planning to vanish. Despite the rampant online speculation, Lucie's family never wavered in their belief that something terrible had happened to her. Tim Blackman, exhausted from months of searching and endless press conferences, refused to give up hope. Lucie's mother, Jane Steer, spent sleepless nights scouring the internet, looking for any clue that might lead them to her daughter. Their pain was unrelenting, but so was their determination. Theories swirled not only about Lucie's whereabouts, but about the man she had last been seen with, Joji Obara. With his wealth, status, and mysterious history, he became the center of a media firestorm. Internet sleuths dug into his past, finding stories of other women who had vanished after meeting him. These unproven rumors only fueled the public's obsession with the case, but still, no concrete evidence tied him to Lucie's disappearance. Had Lucie simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was this a random act of violence by a man with a dark and predatory past? Or was something more calculated happening behind the scenes? For months, theories and rumors continued to swirl, but the investigation itself was at a standstill. Lucie's family was growing desperate for answers, while the rest of the world watched with bated breath. And then, just as the case seemed destined to remain unsolved, a new lead emerged, one that would change everything. It came from a place investigators had never thought to look, and what they found would take the case in a direction no one expected. A year after Lucie Blackman vanished, the case had grown cold. Her family, still desperate for answers, continued to push authorities to find new leads. The investigation had stalled, and the world seemed to be moving on. But then, a startling revelation shook the case open once again. An anonymous letter arrived at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. The sender claimed to know what had happened to Lucie on the night she disappeared. The writer offered chilling details, some of which hadn't been made public. The letter, written in shaky handwriting, described how Lucie had been abducted, drugged, and taken to a remote location. The writer claimed to have witnessed part of the event and offered details about Lucie's final moments, details that only someone close to the case or the perpetrator would know. The police were initially hopeful, thinking this might finally be the break they needed. But there was a problem. The letter's authenticity was immediately questioned. While it contained specific information, there were inconsistencies in the timeline that didn't match with known evidence. Investigators were left wondering, was this a genuine lead from someone involved, or simply a cruel hoax designed to mislead the investigation? Authorities dug deeper, tracing the origins of the letter. They looked for handwriting matches, analyzed the language used, and scoured their suspect list for any connections. But the trail led nowhere. The sender had remained anonymous, using a post office far from any known suspects, and the envelope offered no forensic clues. Police were left with more questions than answers. For Lucie's family, the letter was a double-edged sword. It gave them hope that someone out there knew the truth, but it also deepened their anguish. Tim Blackman, Lucie's father, issued a public statement asking the anonymous writer to come forward. He pleaded for more information, for something concrete that could lead them to Lucie's final resting place. But no one ever came forward. The anonymous letter was never fully dismissed, but it didn't provide the breakthrough investigators had hoped for. Was it the last desperate act of someone trying to clear their conscience? Or was it a deliberate attempt to pull Lucie off the train? To this day, the sender remains a mystery, and no arrests have been made based on the information contained in that letter. Could this letter be the final clue that cracks the case, or just another dead end in a mystery full of unanswered questions? As Lucie's family continued to search for the truth, the police turned their attention back to the man who had been there from the beginning, Joji Obara, and what they would find next would reveal the depths of his dark and hidden past. More than 2 decades have passed since Lucie Blackman's life was cut short, and her case continues to haunt those who loved her. What began as a blind date on a summer night in Tokyo quickly spiraled into one of the most notorious cases in Japan's recent history. While the arrest and conviction of Joji Obara brought some answers, many questions remain. How did Lucie truly spend her final hours? What were the motives behind her disappearance, and who else might know the full story? Lucie's family continues to seek answers. Though Joji Obara is behind bars, the complete truth of Lucie's fate remains elusive. Her father, Tim, has dedicated years to fighting for justice, but time is running out. Without new leads or more witnesses coming forward, the final pieces of this tragic puzzle may never be found. The case of Lucie Blackman remains unsolved in many ways. The pain lingers, and her family has never stopped searching for the truth. As the years pass, the mystery surrounding her death continues to captivate, with many still wondering what really happened to Lucie on that night. Could there be more to this story? Are there others involved who remain hidden in the shadows? The search for justice is far from over. Do you think there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered in Lucie's case? Could someone else out there hold the key to solving the mystery of her disappearance? We want to hear your thoughts. Share your theories in the comments below. What do you think happened to Lucie Blackman? And if you have any information that could help bring this case to a close, now is the time to speak out. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell for more true crime stories like this one. Every story deserves to be told, and every unsolved mystery deserves an ending.